Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Deborah with Sew in the Sanctuary. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back if you are coming back, and if you're new, then welcome to the channel. I'm so glad you're here. So if you watched one of my recent videos, I did share that I did receive an artisan bread kit. And I have this little pamphlet that it came with as well. And so I am going to give a shot at sourdough bread making. So this is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I've been watching tons and tons of videos on how to do it. I've done a lot of research, and I actually ordered a sourdough starter, but unfortunately, if you know me well, and this is probably not a complete surprise to you, but I have misplaced that sourdough starter. So I'm actually going to attempt to do this from scratch today. Now this is going to be a process that takes place over a few days. So this video is actually going to be shot throughout the entire process, and I hope that I have lots of luck with it. So let's get started. All right, so for day one, let me talk to you about what you're going to need. You're going to need just flour and water in some sort of a container that's glass. Now let me show you what I'm going to use. I have purchased this container. It's a glass container that I just bought off Amazon, and it's from the WECK, W-E-C-K brand. This is what I'm going to use to start my sourdough starter. I'm going to use a flour, and I would recommend that you use a whole wheat flour or a rye flour for your sourdough making. And so I'm just going to use the White Lily brand. It's a bread flour, and it happens to be a hard wheat. So we're going to use that, and all you need is water. So again, just a glass jar such as this, wheat and flour. That's it. Easy, easy, easy. All right. So all you're going to need on day one is 1 cup of the flour. So I've already measured that out, and we're simply just going to put it in my glass container like so. You want to be very specific with your measurements. So as you are getting your 1 cup of flour, I just tend to get it, put my 1 cup in my bag, and I make sure that I top it off with my knife. And that's it, 1 cup of the flour. And then we're going to need a 1/2 cup of water. And this can be just room temperature water. It doesn't have to be specifically cold or specifically hot. It can just be room temperature. And then I'm going to take a little spatula here, and I'm simply just going to give it a nice little stir. So I'm going to make sure I stir it, and that's that. That's all we're going to do on day one. So I'm going to make sure I get all of this off like so. And that's that. All right, so I'm gonna let my jar, and this is gonna essentially turn into my sourdough starter. I'm gonna let my jar actually sit overnight, and this is gonna be a process that involves a 24-hour time span. So you do want to keep it uncovered, and if you don't want to keep it completely uncovered, you could put maybe like cheesecloth with a rubber band over it, but it is important just so that you know that air does circulate, because you want the natural yeast to kind of start forming. Okay, so I am actually going to keep this in my kitchen. My kitchen generally stays around 70 degrees. You want it to be in a nice room temperature location within your home. You don't want it to be too hot. You don't want it to be too cold. It generally wants to be around 70 degrees. So you want it in a nice room temperature location. So we're just going to put it in my kitchen, and I actually am going to cover it with my little tea cloth here. Okay, so I'm simply just going to put it like so, and I'm going to keep it over here in my little corner right here. This is a nice location for me because it's right beside the sink. As I'm washing dishes or whatever, I can take a peek and see how it's doing. So that's all we're going to do for day one. We have mixed 1 cup of flour, a 1/2 cup of water, and again, you want your flour to be either wheat or rye. And we're just gonna put it in my glass jar, and we're gonna keep it there for 24 hours. That's day 1. Simple, simple. So it is day 2, and now I'm gonna check in with my starter to see what it looks like and how it's doing. All right, so this is my starter. I'm trying to get in a place where you can see it. All right, so this is my starter. You can see it there through my glass jar. I'm gonna put it down and focus all the way around so you can see that it doesn't really look a lot different. And then inside of it, this is what it looks like too. You can just see that it's obviously still wet. It's combined with the flour and the water. And so 24 hours have passed, and generally speaking, on day 2, your starter may look the same, and sometimes it may start the bubbling process. It just really depends on the temperature of the room. But like I stated a few moments ago, this kitchen stays, generally speaking, around 70 degrees. So you can see that it has started to, I guess, combine completely, and I don't really see any bubbling just yet. But this is what my starter looks like at this point. All right, so on day 2, when you are ready to start the process for day 2, 24 hours have passed since I started the starter. I am actually going to remove half of my starter, okay? So I'm gonna do that simply with a spoon. So I'm gonna grab that real quick. All right, so I have my spoon, and I'm just going to get out about half of my starter. And you're basically just discarding it. So you want to get out the old starter about half. So I've already taken some out. I was just going to take out a little bit more. All right, so now you see about half of it removed. And again, this is just eyeballing it. I'm going to take out just a little bit more. I'm looking at it, and it is mixing pretty nicely. It looks really good. All right, so I've taken about half of my starter out. I'm just going to leave the other half in. And for day 2, you're going to basically repeat the same process as you did on day 1. So I'm going to add a cup of flour back into my jar. And again, this is the same exact flour that I used yesterday. It is my White Lily wheat bread flour. And so I'm going to add my cup of flour, and I am going to add my half cup of water. And then I'm going to take my wooden spoon, and I'm going to give the jar a good stir, because you want everything to mix up really nicely. You want the flour, obviously, to be wet. So I'm just going to give it a good stir. And it looks like it's doing a really good job. Stir it up. You definitely just want to just kind of mix it all in. And I'm going to be honest, this flour doesn't look like it's completely mixed. So I'm just going to keep kind of doing this, just kind of dabbing it. And then I'm going to take my fingers, and I just want to remove all of this off of my spoon, because I want as much as I can to stay in my glass jar. And you want to use the glass jar, obviously, because you want to be able to see the entire process as it's forming. And as your starter's growing, you want to be able to see it taking place through that process. And so the glass jar just makes it super, super easy for you. All right, so this is what we got for day 2. And I'm going to let this sit at room temperature, same place in my kitchen. And this is going to sit again for 24 hours. So I'm going to start feeding it again in 24 hours. And that'll be day 3. All right, so that's day 2. And I do want to remind you that you want to keep it open still on day 2. If you don't want to leave it completely open, then like I said before, you can put a cheesecloth over it. Just put some rubber bands so the cheesecloth does not fall off. But I am just going to use my tea cloth I'm just going to place it back over my jar. Same one as I used yesterday. All right. We are now on day 3. So, believe it or not, day 3 is the actual exact process as yesterday's day 2. So, we are going to discard about half of our starter. So, I want to show you what it's looking like. So, for day 3, you're starting to see some bubbling take place. You see it some here, you see it again right here. And if you look inside of my jar, you're not seeing a whole lot of bubbling, at least not as much as you're gonna be seeing on the sides. So this just lets me know that my starter is starting to grow. It is multiplying, it's getting bigger, and that's exactly what you want to start seeing at least by day 3, okay? Now, if I'm being completely honest, this is my first time making a sourdough starter. And I'm not quite sure, again, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about the discarding of starter. Especially in today's time where things are just kind of through the roof in pricing as far as groceries are concerned. And even just the production of food and the supply and chain of it. I'm not sure how I feel about the discarding of flour and water. Even before times such as this, I wasn't really a fan of being wasteful of food. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about the discarding of my starter, but I'm just following a recipe, and so that's what I'm going to do. I will tell you though, I am not going to waste my starter. I'm actually going to use this for some pancakes for my kids in the morning. So it's not going to go completely to waste. So at least that's a good thing. Now, as I'm smelling my starter, it does have the sour smell, and that's what you want to see. So that's a good thing. Now, with day 3, I'm going to go ahead and start moving about half of my starter. And since I'm not truly going to be throwing this away, I'm just going to simply just put it in my bowl. So let me move the camera to where you can see exactly what I am doing. All right, so I'm going to be removing half of my starter. All right, so that's about half. I'm going to give this a good stir. And then I'm just going to add in for this a cup of flour. We're basically just feeding it. We're going to add a cup of water and a cup of flour and a half cup of water. And I'm just going to give it a good stir with my wooden spoon. I want to make sure that I mix this really well. I'm going to move the camera because it's kind of bad lighting where I was at. So this might be a little better. All right, so I'm going to give this a nice stir. And that's all I'm going to do for day 3. I'm going to make sure that I get all of this off my spoon just like I did yesterday. And I'm going to keep this, I'm going to keep this out. I'm not going to refrigerate it. I am going to keep this out on my counter. I'm going to let it do its thing. And then day 4 will obviously be tomorrow. And that's when I'm going to, from my understanding, I'm going to start feeding my starter every 12 hours. So stay tuned for day 4. All right, so today is day 4. This is getting closer and closer to being done. So on day 4, you're going to start to notice some bubbles, and that's a good thing. So you definitely, by day 4, you want to start noticing lots and lots of more bubbling once you look into your starter. So this is what I have. I've just uncovered it, and you obviously see lots and lots of more bubbling. There's more bubbling as you're looking through my jar, and it is not only bubbling, but it looks like it's getting larger in size. So on day 4, you definitely want to see the bubbling. You want to see it getting larger in volume in terms of the size that it originally started, talking about your starter. So On day 4, you just want to start feeding it every 12 hours. So I actually fed it this morning, and that was probably around 6:30 or so this morning. And so it has been not yet 12 hours, but in about a couple of hours, I'm going to feed this 1/3 cup of flour and 1/3 cup of water. Now, in my directions, it does state that it wants me to remove 1/3 of the starter. But I've also been doing some research, and I've been reading where other people have noted that you don't necessarily have to remove any of the starter. So based on that research that I've done, I'm not going to plan to move any of the starter. I'm simply just going to leave everything in as is. And in about 2 hours, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of my flour and 1/3 cup of water. I'm going to give it a nice stir. And that'll be the end of day 4. So tomorrow will be my day 5. And by tomorrow, honestly, my starter should be ready. I should start to see even more bubbling taking place. And this right here should be even bigger in size. So what you see right now should basically be even further up the rim. So we'll see how it goes. This is day 4. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. The purpose of this video basically was to show someone who's interested how to begin a starter for sourdough bread. Now, I am actually going to do another video in the next couple of days that shows you once you have a starter that is ready to turn into a wonderful piece of artisan bread. I'm going to actually take you through that process, but the purpose of this video was to only kind of teach you and guide you through the process of how to begin a starter. I do want to say at day 5, just like I previously said just a few moments ago, you should, if you do those steps that I just discussed in this video, if you do those steps directly like I told you to, step by step, by day 5, your starter should be ready, and you'll know that it's ready because it's obviously doubled in size in terms of the volume that was in when you started compared to where it is now by the end of day 5. Also, by the end of day 5, you'll know that it's ready because not only will it be much, much larger, but you'll see lots and lots of bubbles. So if you are looking for the bubbles and you see that and you're looking for the size to change, hopefully doubling in size, then you know that you're ready. If for whatever reason you don't yet by the end of day 5 see the volume double in size, and if you don't see the bubbling, then you just want to keep repeating that process of adding 1/3 cup of water and 1/3 cup of sugar every 12 hours. And then once your starter is ready, then you're good to go. So this video is just showing you how to begin your starter, and the next couple of videos in the next couple of days I'm going to publish how to actually make bread once you have your starter, and I'll take you through those steps step by step as well. All right, as always guys, find that seed, sow it so that you can create your wonderful sanctuary. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, that would be great. And if you have any feedback, please, I am welcoming feedback, good or bad. So just let me know what you're thinking. And if you've not yet subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, see you next time. Bye.